Dr. Cindy here. I'm always inspired. I either need to stay the hell off of Facebook or continue to be inspired by people who have very strong opinions, are excellent intellectuals. Anybody might inspire me. I might read something and I just get inspired, okay? Well, this time I was inspired by Erica Boston, who she's one of my dear friends on Facebook, and I'm usually inspired by her, most often inspired by her. Her posts are thoughtful and explicit, and she has a point of view that I find very inspirational. I see I got a number of people coming on. Good. At this time, I'd like to say, please share. This is a very controversial essay that I'm doing today. It is going to ruffle a few feathers of the male persuasion, but it's not meant to. It's meant for you to think, and that is what I want everyone to do. I want everyone to think when I write. Then you put in the comments, girl, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Or you could say, spot on, I get it. I never thought about it that way, and I get it, okay? As always, share with people you think might be interested in hearing or reading, either my written essays or my video essays, okay? All right, I'm going to jump right in. The title of this essay is called, I didn't even tell you why I'm dedicating this essay to Erica Boston. And I'm dedicating this essay to Erica Boston because not only are her posts thoughtful and explicit, she has a point of view that I find very inspirational. There was a discussion she was in the midst of on black men in relation to black women and misogyny or misogynoir that sparked my intellect in such a way that as I was writing the initial comment to her, with my disclaimer, of course, I thought I'd write an essay about my opinion on the subject from a broader perspective than can be put into a Facebook comment, because sometimes I know I have a tendency to get a little long-winded in my essays or my opinions or my comments. So, and this one is a bit long-winded, but bear with me because it may give you a different perspective. All right. Subjects surrounding the behavior of black men and black women toward one another are as complex as the subject of white supremacy itself. And make no mistake, yes, this essay, as most of mine are, is on its face about white supremacy. I must be careful, however, since it is extremely difficult not to find myself caught in an endless loop of circular referencing, a maddening roller coaster ride that will always undoubtedly end in a confounding and angry discourse between otherwise rationally thinking people. It is important, therefore, to be extremely careful for me not to attempt to speak for others. And at the same time, it is also very important to see the larger picture that brought us here in this space where we question our loyalty to ourselves and our unity on an ever-increasing basis. Therefore, as you listen or read this essay, understand that I am not trying to change your mind, but to open it. The subject of white supremacy and black male-female relationships is not comfortable. and I am not here to provide comfort. I am offering a perspective that may or may not have been considered before. As a black collective of human beings in this country, we have been living in a perpetual dilemma. This dilemma picks at black men and women like a little child picking a nasty scab off an equally nasty wound. It is also like a sandwich. Imagine that. It's also like a sandwich with a slice of white bread on the top and a piece of pumpernickel on the bottom, with an Angus burger in the middle, slathered in mayonnaise and covered in a sheet of white wrapping paper. What is this dilemma? Well, let me break it down. White supremacy is the wrapping that envelops the sandwich. Black men are the pumpernickel, and white men are the white slice. The black woman is the burger, and the patriarchy is the mayo that covers her. I hope you understand what I'm saying with that. That being said, I find myself caught helplessly, circled around the question of whether the chicken came before the egg or vice versa. That circular reference that confounds by design. If I don't identify and examine this dilemma. So I'll break it down. I'll break down the components of this dilemma, not in the order they appear in the sandwich, but in the order in which the hierarchy appears. Let me say that again. I'm going to break this dilemma down in the order in which the hierarchy appears. But first, what is a hierarchy? You don't have to break it down. I'm a wordsmith. I'm going to break these words down for you. Okay? What is a hierarchy? Well, it is a system in which members of an organization or society are ranked according to relative status or authority. Therefore, I will be ranking this dilemma according to its relative status or authority. Remember these definitions when I give them to you, because I'll be throwing them back up there. So up first, in terms of hierarchy, is the patriarchy, which is literally as old as Adam from the Bible, and why in the hierarchy I placed it first. But this essay is not about the Bible or religion, although one must understand the whole rib thing in order to move forward about my perspective about the dilemma. Patriarchy is fundamentally, and now I'm going to get into this patriarchy definition for you. Patriarchy is fundamentally a system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. All right? It is derived from 17th century medieval Latin, meaning ruling father. Now, we really do not need to ask ourselves why the father is the head. We can start with God the Father and work our way down to the second rung, man the Father, and who was made in God's image, and who in Genesis virtually gave birth to the first woman from his own body. Now that's a feat. Knowing how we know in reality how people are born, but if we are to believe Genesis, and I'm not talking religion here, the woman was brought out from the rib of Adam. So man literally gave birth to the first woman, if we believe that rationale. But whatever. I digress, and I'm really not trying to do that here. So, next up is white supremacy. For purposes of this essay, the definition of white supremacist is used. Since within the culture of white supremacy, it is important to frame it as an individual people, and not ideologic, meaning not a belief or thought pattern. And therefore, it was difficult to find a succinct definition for the ideology of white supremacy itself. But Merriam-Webster calls a white supremacist a person who believes that the white race is inherently superior to other races and that white people should have control over people of other races. Understood as an ideology, then, we can reasonably conclude that white supremacy is the belief that the white race is inherently superior to other races and that white people should be in control of other races, or should control other races. So why did I put white supremacy second? It's because white, as a constructed ideology, did not come before the ideology of man as superior. It is as simple as that. Does it lose any of its potency? No, because it has become interchangeable and synonymous with patriarchy over the generations of that ideology. I hope everybody's following me, because this is some complex stuff. I mean, this is some really complex stuff. It really is. And I'm not saying that I know it all, just in case. There might be some people out there, oh, yeah, I guess you know every goddamn thing. No, I don't. Okay? It's just that I research and I think sometimes too deeply about things. Sometimes my family says to me, can you lighten the hell up? Can you just lighten up, Cindy? Yeah, sometimes I do. But there's something in this head, there's something in my mind that something clicks on when I read something by people like Erica or Tonya, or other people, Diane, different people, Fanny. There are different people who inspire me to such an extent that I'd have to think a little more critically about what it is that they're talking about. And then of course, I get inspired to write an essay, and here, I wrote an essay, here it go. One here it go. But, damn it, I digressed again. And I also cuss like a sailor, so I have to be very careful and mindful. Anyway. In this country, where the top, now, I want you to listen carefully to what I'm saying here, because I'm throwing those definitions right back at you for context. In this country, where the top of the relative status or authority, which is the hierarchy, is a system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it, patriarchy, and where the white race is inherently superior to other races, and that white people should have control over people of other races, white supremacy, we can reasonably conclude that white men are at the top of that food chain and have all the power there is to have in whatever way that power is and can be expressed on this planet, short of God. Now, I know I'm talking to some men, and I know your individual manhood and your egos and all of that other stuff is going to be affected by what I say moving forward. But I need you to open your mind, because in this space and time of easily altered states of mind, whether it's external through the use of drugs or whatever, and I always recommend that in these times we need to be in our right minds and not in altered states of mind, even if it's just for a minute, like, oh, let me take a drink, let me smoke a joint. It really is important for you to remain in a conscious state of mind with everything that's going on right now. Okay, so I need you to open that consciousness and think very critically about what I'm saying moving forward. Based on their relative status or authority and the system of society to which we belong, where women are largely excluded from it, and the history of white women in this hierarchy, we know that white men have always, history, white men have always objectified white women. Whether they are putting them high on the top of pedestals as the aesthetic to which we should all aspire, or whether they are porn stars on porn.com or whatever that thing is. They are objectified, have always been objectified. White women have fought and are still fighting under the banner of feminism to be considered equal in this hierarchy. Now remember what I said about the hierarchy. The relative status or authority. They want to be equal within that hierarchy. Okay? They want to diminish or eliminate the patriarchy in becoming equal. Of course, this will remain as difficult and this is my opinion. This is my opinion. It will remain as difficult and as unlikely as eliminating the patriarchy in religion and of God, because that's how deep it runs. Nevertheless, this essay isn't about white women, nor is it about feminism, although feminism might be mentioned in some sentences for context. Enter the black man and woman, literally on slave ships from Africa. There is a myriad of arguments which deal with patriarchy in Africa and the origins of patriarchy on the continent. Of course, this essay is not about to go into the history of patriarchy in Africa or argue whether the origins were Western. That's not the purpose of this essay. But here's something to consider as we move further along in this essay. Listen carefully, because I've got this bolded, and I'm going to have it bolded on my written essay. Patriarchy for black men and women in America is uniquely positioned within white supremacy in such a way that without white supremacy, the need for black male superiority over black women would probably not exist in the way that it does today. Are you getting that? Think about that statement within the context of the definitions of hierarchy, patriarchy, and white supremacy that I provided you in this essay, and then read this bolded statement again if you happen on the written essay, but I'll repeat it. Based on the definitions that I've given you of hierarchy, patriarchy, and white supremacy, patriarchy for black men and women in America is uniquely positioned within white supremacy in such a way that without white supremacy, there would not be a need for black male superiority, which is what patriarchy is, over black women. And it probably would not exist in the way that it does today. Understand at the outset that I am not talking about manhood. And I'm going to get into that a little later. I'm talking about patriarchy. Historically, black men and women have been pitted against one another in one way or another during the enslavement, since the enslavement. Both were consistently demoralized, dehumanized, and black men were punished severely in front of their women to what? Emasculate them. They were also emasculated when they were forced to watch slave masters and other slaves raping their women. And they couldn't do a damn thing about it. This, of course, was a recipe for generational resentment between black women and black men, who through generations of white supremacy and white patriarchy eventually developed their own brand of superiority among themselves. Fast forward to the so-called civil rights movement, which I call the limited economic apportionment era. There is absolutely no secret. Black women became a twofer, meaning colleges, universities, and companies now forced to hire black people decided hiring a black woman meant they got two for the price of one. A black and a woman. Couple that with the lack of opportunity and outright opportunity denied black men, many of whom were either being piped into prison or coming out felons with nothing, and some either forced from their homes because public assistance didn't allow males in the family. Add to that coming home damaged physically and mentally and addicted to heroin from the Vietnam War, the armed forces being the only avenue for many in poverty. With black men out of the home for a variety of reasons, not providing because either they couldn't or gave up, just stopped trying because living real life didn't fit the illusion of superiority of their manhood. There was bound to be more resentment and individual strife-filled experiences among some of these black families and relationships, as there certainly were. I mean, we know this. This is stuff that we know already. This is generational. So recall earlier in my essay, I wrote that in the hierarchy, or how the members of an organization, now I'm talking about hierarchy, how the members of an organizational society are ranked according to relative status or authority. White men rank at the top of the food chain. Well, black men fall to the lowest link of this chain. Yeah, you do. And you know you do. So really, and I'm not talking about economic apportionment. I'm not talking about whether you can provide for your family economically or not. I'm talking about something a lot different. Okay? So let me move on before I begin to digress again. Black men have no power. Are you hearing me, black men? It's a very hard and a very bitter pill to swallow in this country. But the reality is you don't possess power. The power to control your life and body is in the hands of the people at the top of the food chain, whether we all like it or not. This is the reality. Although the individual dignity of the black man demands it to be otherwise. And many will then cling to the fallacy of the phallic symbology. The belief that because they share a physical phallic system with white men, and not realizing that they are living a delusion of power because of it, thus creating a feigned superiority over their women, like white men have over their women. Let me say that again. This is the reality. Although the individual dignity of black men, which I know you have to, even though it's constantly being bombarded and smashed and torn and beaten down. That dignity demands it to be otherwise, and many will then cling to the fallacy of the fact that they share the physicality of the oppressor. And that alone somehow gives them a measure of power to wield within their own community as part of a created black patriarchy. In a nation, and in fact a world where the black man has absolutely no tangible power, and the only thing they do have is the illusion of such power based solely on the notion that a penis binds them inextricably to patriarchy with the white man. Some will hold on to this feigned power for dear life, coveting it as some real force, but creating enormous resentment among many black women who may understand the broader nature of power in a white supremacist society, or black women who live only in the moments of their individual lives and see no evidence of the black man's power or desire to change his circumstances, and are left to wonder why some of them behave in so many of the negative ways that they do in order to control their women within their own created black hierarchy. At this point in my essay, many men reading it or listening to it will probably be hunching their shoulders, leaning forward and denying the reality of their powerlessness within white supremacist ideology in favor of their individual dignity as a man. As well you should, because I'm not talking about your manhood. This essay is not an indictment of your manhood. It is an indictment of patriarchy and how it is working to destroy your manhood. Bear in mind, in the desire to have control over people of other races, as white supremacy is defined, they have consistently controlled the narrative for the behavior of black men and women toward each other. And patriarchy is a tool. Of course, this same patriarchy has been reinforced for generations by religion and the black church. For example, man at the head, man at the top. And the man is the leader of the family, the breadwinner. And many women in the church support these notions of black manhood, either consciously or unconsciously. Notice the word that I used. Notions of black manhood. hope you're thinking. Either consciously or unconsciously helping to stoke the illusion of a black patriarchal power. Even within the church, there are some who perpetuate black patriarchal power, knowing that black men have no real power in this country outside of the church or within or outside of the confines of their own spaces, and they live within the paradox of reality versus illusion. Black men and women butt heads today in a constant struggle for equality that is already a reality, and a patriarchy which is an illusion. If black men were truly tied by virtue of their manhood to white men, then there would be no white supremacy, only the patriarchy. This is actually the premise behind that series that's so popular on Hulu, A Handmaid's Tale. To put it bluntly, black men and women are equal in the struggle against white supremacy and racism, and that is where the focus should be. We should not have a patriarchy. There is no real patriarchy because we are equal in our struggle against white supremacy and racism. This is where the focus should be, since patriarchy for black people is as divisive as it is for white people. There would be no white feminists needed if there wasn't a white patriarchy. And white supremacists know this. They bank on the emotional toll that it brings to families and relationships. They understand the nature of patriarchal manhood, which is different from real manhood, since patriarchy is a fallacy, a construct. I hope you follow me. What the pastor said, you don't hear me. I hope you hear me. God knows I hope you hear me. I hope your minds are so open, and I hope I'm just blowing this in like air. Just to think about. You may finish, I may finish, you might say, you might even just get off of it and go, I'm looking at the little thing with the little eyeball and the I don't even think I have any people looking at this anymore at this point. But that's fine, because this is my video essay, and it is what it is. I put it out there because I want you to think. Anyway, they understand the nature of patriarchal manhood and how some black men will hold on to it for lack of anything else, creating for themselves that illusion of power over black women. And of course, some of these men will express this illusion of power negatively as misogyny and misogynoir. But for a moment, and this statement is only for men who are listening and who will read this essay, you need to ask yourself an extremely difficult question in order to move forward in this discussion, if any of you are still listening at this point. On what does your manhood depend? Let me repeat that. On what does your manhood depend? Now, I have no way of knowing what the response would be from any of the men who may come in contact with this video or who were listening in. But I did ask my husband that question. He didn't even have to think that long. He said that his manhood depends on his humanity toward himself and others. It was that simple and that complicated. For black men and women as a collective, the challenge is to say enough. The challenge is to stop consciously or unconsciously reinforcing the white patriarchy within the black experience. Will this be difficult as hell on earth? Yes, indeedy. Since as a collective we have been conditioned for generations to believe that a black patriarchy does exist. We bought into the illusion of man on top and the delusion of an opportunity for the black man to live there on top. When we know that the black man is at the bottom of that chain, and the black man is the one who they are trying to kill first. I didn't stutter. We see it every day. So, for some black men, this illusion of power is extremely seductive, even as it is a fallacy that causes destruction in its wake. And we don't even have to imagine the paradoxical volatility created by reality versus illusion. We are living in it right now, every day, in each and every institution of racism both black men and women experience in America today. So we can't get sidetracked. And that's the end of the essay. We can't get sidetracked and begin to fall into these roles. I'm not even going to say gender roles. I'm saying male-female roles within a patriarchal hierarchy. Because that's not really being true to us and our experience here in this country, in this white supremacist country. Because these are the kinds of things that are designed to divide. And I thank you, Erica, for giving me that inspiration to write something with that in mind. So, with that all being said, is there anybody here? Do I even have any friends left? Am I being blocked? I don't know. I don't know if I'm being blocked or not, but I see there are some people that are here or that were here. I see some people that are here, and I'm happy that you are. Yeah, the seed is fear, Cecil. It is. It is. For black men, it is. It definitely is fear. It's fear of losing that which they know they have by virtue of their humanity. And I'm talking about black men. But it's the fear of losing control. And it's the fear of losing control over yourself. You know? It is. It's hard. It's hard being black. I'm not a man. So I don't know. I have no experiential reference to what goes on for black men. I have two sons. So I do get a glimpse. I have a husband, so I can sometimes get a glimpse. But because I think the way that I do, I don't, well, first of all, I don't like grouping anyway. We live in an individualized world with individualized people, as I'm going to do an essay about that too. And we ought to start thinking that way and know when to put on our collective cap and when to deal with each other individually and not lump everybody together because of one person's experience. And so I do not lump all black men in that one big bucket of they don't care about black. I don't do that. I'm sorry. I just will not. And no, I'm not even apologizing. I'm unapologetically just not going to do that. I'm not going to group black men together. It's not happening. But at the same time, I know that there are people, men, who are so caught up in the patriarchy that they don't even realize that that is what it is. Let me look and see. Oh, good. Hey, Khalil. Consuela. Yvonne. Oh, I got people who were actually on, and that's a good thing. Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Celesser? I think you know. Smith. Yep. Hey. Renee. Kenneth. Beverly. China! My China! That's my baby. I hope you're still on, China. I don't know. Are you on with me now, or did you just click on and say, oh, Nana talking that stuff again? So Nanny talking that race stuff again. I'm getting off. She cracks me up. Nanny talking all that race stuff. Okay, Michael Washington, I look forward to yours because I know that sometimes we agree to disagree, and that's fine. I'm looking forward to it. And sometimes we agree. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I want to hear it. Denise, Pretzman, hey. Obed, hey. Oh, you put a post up there that got me. I'm trying to think of what it is now. And I commented my tail off on that one. You were inspiring me, but I figured I better not. I had to get away from your post, that one post you put up there. But yeah, I think you do understand. I think you do. And Joranda LaFleur, hi. Linda Gaines. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Jinfin, I think it is. I think, is it a silent P? Jerome Terrell. Alexander the Encourager. I hope all you people are still on. I'm seeing all these names now that I didn't see, that I saw popping up, but I'm not sure. You might have gotten on and then got off or something like that. I see Kenneth Porter. I see Gary Slater. And of course, Khalil and Sean and... What? Hello, Mr. Mega. How are you? This is a very dynamic person in Philadelphia who is very, very involved in city activism. Yes, indeed. I followed him and like a lot of what he does. In fact, it has been a minute, but I remember Will Mega was the person who was responsible for bringing to the surface some activities going on at a Lowe's in West Philadelphia where they were profiling black patrons. They were profiling the black customers. and making them stand there and get their receipts monitored before they could leave the store and things like that, which I thought was like just a mess. Russell Fuller, hey. David Perry, Rockin' Raymond Bentley, okay. Wanda Johnson, Billy Hyatt. I don't know whether you were all still on, and I hope I'm not missing anybody, but I did want to, let's just get to it, LOL. Wait a minute. At what point am I reading this? Before I got started on my essay or now that I'm done? That's funny, Will. Larry Hughes and Kenny Wayne and Michael Barnes and Billy Clark, Xavier White, Linda Taylor, Theo Berry. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody throw a question at me? If you're even on anymore, just throw a question at me. I'll wait for a little while. If you're still on, Will Mega, why don't you ask me a question? Well, if there are none, please, like I said, feel free to share. Tell me what you think. Get down into those comments later on after I'm off. And I always try to go back to the video afterwards and I respond to some of the comments, even if I just acknowledge that I've seen it, with one of those gesture emojis. And I guess that's it. Something for you to think about, as usual. I know this is twice in one week, right? I think I did one on Monday. No. Was it Sunday? Oh, I don't know. I did one recently. And here I am again. But anyway, that's because the inspiration works in a really funny way with me. Sometimes I might not be inspired for weeks. Sometimes it's within days. But it all depends on, like I said, on that inspiration. Something that I see, an article, somebody's comment, whatever. It'll give me an inspiration to write an essay. And this one I thought was kind of important, just in terms of understanding how the patriarchy works and how it affects us. Anyway, as always, put your thinking caps on, put on your lenses, and think critically. And don't be afraid to look for the unbleached truth. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.